Hey guys, and welcome to our third part of our notes here, where we're focusing on the organelles of the cells. Now, we just got done talking about the two different types of cells, the prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. And one of the biggest differences that we understand is that eukaryotic cells have these things known as what we call membrane-bound organelles. And so we started to discuss about how organelles were like organs inside of a human body, where they have a specific function to them. For example, I told you guys that the heart's main function is to pump blood. Well, when it comes to cells, we know that cells also have these specific functions inside of them that are going to do something specific. Now today, what our job is, or what our goal is to be able to go over some of those organelles, and also to be able to identify some of those organelles as well. So hit pause, take the time, and kind of figure out if you can figure out 1 through 10 what those organelles are. Again, our main focus today is that we want to talk about those organelles inside of a cell. Questions that we want to be able to answer at the end of our PowerPoint is, what is the difference between a plant cell and an animal cell? And what are the organelles and their functions? Okay. Again, from the last PowerPoint that we talked about, is that organelles are just these organs inside of a cell. Organelles, organs inside a cell, organelles. So it kind of sounds exactly the same too. So that will kind of help you guys figure it out. But they have special functions to them, and they do something specific for the cell. No matter what type of cell you are, whether you're a prokaryotic cell or whether you're a eukaryotic cell, there are some organelles or organs that are organs that they have in common with each other. 3 of them are the cell membrane, cytoplasm, and ribosomes. When it comes to the cell membrane, we understand that that is the outermost part of the cell. Its main function is to surround the cell itself. Its goal is to control whatever enters and leaves the cell. When it comes to the cytoplasm is not necessarily an organelle as in a membrane-bound organelle, but instead it's just the jelly-like substance found in the cell. This is where reactions will occur. This is where the organelles will kind of be free-floating inside of the cell. You can think about it as an air in our environment. When it comes to ribosomes, ribosomes serve a really big purpose, and that is to make proteins. One thing that we'll talk about later is how proteins are very important to living things. When it comes to proteins, proteins do many things, such as help to build the structures in our bodies, such as our muscles and bones. And when it comes to proteins, they are also acting like enzymes to where they'll help to digest certain foods. Ribosomes are important when it comes to making these proteins. The nucleus is, remember, something that is very, very unique only to eukaryotic cells. We understand that eukaryotic cells have a nucleus where prokaryotic cells will not have a nucleus. When it comes to the nucleus and its main function is to control what the cell does. And the way it does that is that it carries all that genetic information. It carries the blueprints of that living organism, whether it be a cell, whether it be bacteria, whether it be animals, whether it be plants. The nucleus contains its DNA. The endoplasmic reticulum can be broken down into 2, based off of whether it has ribosomes or whether it does not have ribosomes. When it comes to the endoplasmic reticulum, we have what we call the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, which has a smooth appearance. And we have what we call the rough endoplasmic reticulum, or has ribosomes on top of them, giving it a rough appearance. When it comes to the smooth ER, since it lacks ribosomes, it's going to help make lipids and helps with your metabolism. Where the rough ER, since it has ribosomes on top of them, it is a place where proteins can be made and be carried throughout the cell. The Golgi body is an organelle where it's constantly on the go, if you want to think about it that way. Where when it's on the go, its main function is to package and ship the proteins that are made. You can think about this as a UPS store or your postal service. If you need something packaged up and sent across the country, across the state, the Golgi body serves to package and ship things in and out of the cell. The mitochondria is also known as the powerhouse of the cell. Its main function is to make energy. It's going to make this energy through a process known as cellular respiration. Vacuoles. When it comes to a vacuole, you can think about a vacuum, where in this case here, when it comes to vacuuming, especially if you have kids, vacuoles are going to store water, food, and or nutrients. When it comes to plant cells will have a larger vacuole than your animal cells. And that's because, well, think about plants. Plants really need water. And when it comes to plants, they really can't uproot themselves to get that water. So an adaptation for this is that plants will have larger vacuoles so they can store the water. Lysosomes. When it comes to lysosomes, think of that prefix that we see there, Lysol. Lysol helps to clean and disinfect. Lysosomes do the same thing. When it comes to lysosomes, they're going to contain these things known as digestive enzymes that will help to break down unwanted waste from the cell. Things that we find in plant cells that we don't find in animal cells. The first thing that we're going to look at is the cell wall. When it comes to animal cells do not have a cell wall. In fact, when it comes to the cell wall of plants, this is what gives the plants its structure. It also, in a way, will also help with protection of the cell. It's made up of a certain type of sugar known as cellulose. Another feature that plants have that animal cells do not have is what we call a chloroplast. When it comes to chloroplast, this is what makes a plant an autotroph, where it can make its own energy. When it comes to the chloroplast, this is where photosynthesis occurs, where they take the light energy and some water, and they're able to convert it into usable energy. Last but not least, one thing that we mentioned earlier was the vacuole size. Now, both cells, animals and plants, will both have a vacuole, but when it comes to plant cells, their vacuoles will be much larger. Certain cells will have the ability to be able to move. Now, when it comes to cell mobility, they have certain different types of structures that help to move the cell. First one is what we call cilia, which surrounds the cell itself. It's almost like a hair-like structure that kind of wiggles and helps the cell itself to move. The flagella is a tail-like structure when it comes to cells, where it kind of whips around and helps the cell to move. This can be found only in animal or prokaryotic cells.